Hi, good afternoon. This is Marc Reece, the marketing director of Cope and Golden Eye Infinity Smart Screen, and today I have the pleasure of introducing Angelo. We just went over this. I'm going to butcher it. Stracquatanio.
Close. I'll give it to you. Stracquatanio.
Stracquatanio. There we go. Angelo is the co-founder and CEO of Apprentice, providing the leading industrial augmented reality solutions for laboratories and complex manufacturing organizations. He's a pioneer of AR and AI for human empowerment. Angelo has positioned Apprentice as the worldwide front runner for innovative technology. Angelo imagines a world which synergistic relationship is generated between man and technology existed, and meaningful research, life-saving product development, manufacturing are all executed with greater control, safety, productivity, stability, and reliability. Apprentice doesn't just augment reality, it augments human ability, and I want to talk about that in a minute.
Sure.
Angelo previously developed enterprise mobile applications for global Fortune 500 companies, and he's taken some time out of his schedule to talk to us today. So, Angelo, I appreciate you taking some time and talking with us.
Absolutely, and likewise, really excited to dig into this. It's an area that obviously excites me very much, so I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Excellent. I guess the first question I have is, why don't you give us, for those of you who may not know you, why don't you give us a little background on yourself and Apprentice?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Angelo Stracquatanio. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Apprentice, or also known as Apprentice.io, if you Google us. We are the leading augmented reality solution for life sciences and, by extension, laboratory and complex manufacturing environments. So what I mean by all of that is, for the scientists working in the lab or the operator or engineer working in manufacturing, we've built a tool to be the all-day solution for these folks, so that as they're going through their experiment or their process, they can have everything that they need in their full field of view in augmented reality. They can view technique demonstrations, and especially in the lab, on how to perform certain experiments. We can capture data with a number of different cool ways, especially around machine learning and AI. And then we can stitch all of that together to really empower these individuals, because at the end of the day, especially in life sciences, discovering drugs and making them and getting them out to the patient are really hard. And they have a lot of challenges for workers working in that environment. And so we've built a tool specifically for these types of folks who have a lot of high ambitions in terms of what they want to achieve. And having this type of technology, especially with AR, really, in our belief, is going to unlock the next wave of human ability.
It's interesting because the shows that I go to, in fact, when we were at EWTS, and we had a great audience, the people that I spoke with, even though they're there for AR, there were some people that were kind of just getting their feet wet. And I guess my question is, with scientists and in the lab, and maybe even manufacturing for that matter, how is AR transforming the way, like I said, the scientists work in the lab or a manufacturer works in the plant? How would you tell somebody who doesn't really know how that would happen or help?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few tiers to how this technology is now transforming the way that these individuals work. At the lowest tier, it's digitizing. What's so fascinating about life sciences is that there's still a lot of paper left in this environment. We like to say that one of our biggest competitors is paper, because for the scientists in the lab or the operator or engineer in manufacturing, they have to follow very complex processes, because drug making, like I said, is not as simple as taking a few things, mixing it together, and you make a drug. Especially now with biologics and even now personalized medicine, there's some really big challenges, yet a lot of the industry is still based on paper. So the first step in providing value for these folks and how it transforms their day-to-day is digitizing and capturing some of this data electronically for the first time, and doing it in a way that's completely hands-free. My background, like you'd mentioned, I'm an enterprise or former enterprise mobile engineer. So, sitting behind a computer screen all day, I kind of take for granted the constant access to information and the ease in which I can capture data. But if you're a scientist and you're working and you're interacting with different pieces of equipment, or an engineer working on 3-story tall bioreactors, That's just not the case. And so, providing this tool where these individuals can work hands-free, access the content that they need, and capture the data that they're required to do, it really then has transformed and moved them from a paper and manual process to something that is beginning to really transform the nature of the whole industry. And so on the industrial side, or I should say at the industry level now, we're doing a lot of things to really level up, I should say, the people working in these environments so that they can attack and solve the big challenges that are coming up with life sciences, specifically around going from drugs like you may think of, like over-the-counter little pills that you take, to biologics, to personalized medicine. There's a lot of big things that this industry wants to achieve, and AR, in our opinion, is that enabling tech to make it all happen for the humans working in this environment.
Did you meet a lot of resistance when you introduced this? And the reason why I ask is when I was talking to somebody at the field service show, a CTO came up to me and said, "We want to do this. We want to incorporate some type of smart glass with our technicians." And the pilots that they've done, the technicians who he said range anywhere from millennials to your old school technician. The old school met a lot of resistance because they're like, "Yeah, no, I got my phone, and we don't want to look stupid. If we're doing some remote, I'm talking back to the home office, the customer might not think that we know what we're talking about." He's like, "Believe it or not, that's the wall we hit."
Yeah, so what's so fascinating about this is there's two areas in which we found a way to kind of crack the code around, hey, it makes me look funny, or hey, I have to put what on my face? What are you talking about? And there's two ways that we've been very successful with this. The first one is just bread and butter, just old school, show up in person and walk them through this process and introduce them to the technology hand to hand, face to face. We take a very hands-on approach with our customers. We feel that it's very important to be with them as they're experiencing this technology for the first time, because sometimes there is resistance or trepidation to this new thing. But by really showing them how it's going to transform and provide value to and speed up and improve their day-to-day lives, it really then all of a sudden crystallizes for everyone from that millennial all the way to the person that's been there for 30 years. What's so funny is that in our case, the highest uptick in usage we've actually seen is for the 30-year professional, because they've lived and felt the pains and scars for so many years, that when you introduce it the right way and you attack the right use cases for those types of people that really want to do a better job for, in our case, the patients that eventually use these drugs, it really does then provide a tremendous amount of value. And the trepidation all of a sudden around using this technology for the first time drops like a rock. When you introduce this tech and it's kind of set it and forget it, it just doesn't work. And so in our case, we take a very hands-on approach, and we're very proud of that. And secondly, the big thing is that devices have come a long way. It's not Google Glass anymore. Okay, we're not talking about something that's fragile and doesn't have many capabilities and the voice is terrible. What we're excited about with the Copen device is specifically around a lot of the interaction and ease of use, using one's voice to be able to interact with and access different content and information. So it's in our belief that the devices have come so far that the expectations are now being met, where people have a certain idea about what this technology can achieve, and now it can deliver on it. It's not just this mythical thing that's going to happen 10 years from now. We believe that with today's hardware and today's software, that a tremendous amount of value can be achieved if you approach it the right way.
You mentioned the voice, and we've been perfecting our voice module on the GoldenEye Infinity Smart Screen. In fact, I just saw a few days ago, we just had another demo of it, and it really is. It's mind-blowing. I mean, it's quick. You talk, it responds. And I think you'll be excited to see it. We're getting ready to do more launches with it. But what got me, and when we met at EWTS, was the compliance part. And I believe I even said this to you, in a compliance-driven environment such as a lab that's really restrictive and, could be top secret for that matter. We have regulatory issues and security issues. how did you and your platform overcome the challenges from an IT perspective regarding the use of smart glasses and AR in the lab environment, specifically maybe with a camera and so forth? Because there's a lot of issues that people are like, whoa, nope.
Yeah, so there's three areas that, going back to 2014 now, when we got started with the company, around privacy, security, and compliance. These are three things that, going back to even when the company was just formed, in our DNA as an organization, we decided to attack these problems in addition to the cool tech, right? But we decided that we didn't want the regulatory, the security, and the privacy to be an afterthought. So we built in things into the tool from day one so that we can get ready for deploying into this world. We didn't get much into the origin story of Apprentice, but the quick 10-second overview is that I was having a conversation with my co-founder who comes from the space. So she understands the space incredibly well. She lived and breathed the pains on a day-to-day basis. And so even going back to the founding moments of this company's history, we always knew that we had to attack the regulatory, the security, and the privacy from day one. And so what we specifically did then thereafter was the actual software solution, number one, matched the regulatory requirements of life sciences, which for us, there are many requirements that we've had to get through and build in. And don't get me wrong, they're not trivial. The regulatory requirements for software, when you're making drugs for human beings that are going in their body, are hard. And so we've spent a lot of time investing in this, and something that we now well understand. But secondly, at a security level, we work with companies that have, in our opinion, some of the most stringent security out there, which is one notch lower than, say, the CIA, to give a point of comparison. Because we have some customers, for example, that make us go through multiple third-party audits, that it's not just some questionnaire you fill out and say you're secure or not. No, we have people come on site and go through a process with us and make sure that we don't just say we have it, but that we can prove it. And so the process around security is very high, and it's one that's very important. And so by taking that and putting that in the leading edge of our product and not just an afterthought, we've been able to successfully get through a lot of these. And I should say not a lot of them, all of them, we haven't failed a single one. And by building that into an augmented reality emerging tech product from the start, it ends up making your life so much easier later on when you're moving towards these big deployments. But the last one that I think you pointed out, which is really important too, is privacy. So there's a camera on your face staring at another human. And how do you deal with the cultural side of this technology? That's not just the tech, not just security, not just infrastructure and regulatory, but the human aspect around, this cultural, sometimes in the early days of Apprentice, there was a little bit of a backlash to having a camera in front of you at all times. I think there are two major things that have happened for this industry. And when I say this industry, I mean augmented reality. I think two things that have really changed is that external to augmented reality, external to the enterprise, I think folks are becoming a lot more comfortable with these devices in their day-to-day lives. I wouldn't say it's 100% yet, but I would definitely say that the different types of devices that now exist, going back to Google Glass in 2014, the smartphone penetration wasn't at 100% yet. Not everyone, including my mom, didn't have a smartphone at the time. But now in 2018, the game has changed, and I think there is now a acceptance and an understanding where in the early days there was hesitation because of the unknown. Is this camera recording? What are you doing with the data? Is my boss going to look over my shoulder? And a lot of those things we've solved by, number one, again, being on site and in person with everyone and walking them through and answering their questions. But number two, the devices themselves have provided indicators and other types of things so that it's easier for everyone to understand whether or not they're either being recorded or something like that. So it's really improved at both a cultural level, at a hands-on level, as well as at a device level. I think we're at the stage now where the comfort around using a device and having this in one's environment has greatly improved from the days of old.
You know, what's funny is even when I'm at corporate and I'm doing videos, like I'll be walking down the hall with GoldenEye on my head, and I'll pass them. They'll still seem to like, don't get me. You know what? Let's talk a little bit about the platform. It's a two-part question, so I want to talk a little bit about your platform. And we know that it works in the lab, and I'd like to talk a little bit about what you do in the lab. But what about like manufacturing and field service and logistics and chemical? I'm assuming, I shouldn't assume, but I believe you can use this platform, or you can make it fit those other industries. So I'd like to know, A, what you can do for like field service and manufacturing besides the lab, if you can, and a little bit more about your platform.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have two main verticals within a vertical that we focus on. Obviously, the scientists working in the lab, which primarily is scientists working on drug discovery, you know, folks that are really trying to cure cancer, literally, as well as the engineers and operators in manufacturing in what we classify as kind of the batch-based manufacturing world, the world in which things are made in batches and not on assembly lines. You know, we've decided to specifically focus on this space because, number one, our team, we have a very deep and rich team to pull from that comes from this industry, that knows it better than anybody. And so for us, we've decided to focus on this space, even though in theory, the platform can be used for these other verticals like field service, like assembly, manufacturing, and others. We've built the platform to be nimble enough to do that. However, we've chosen as a business to get really good at this vertical and make sure that this augmented reality tech isn't just a generic solution, that it does provide the highest impact and the highest value for the people working in this space. Because even though they are working in manufacturing, and manufacturing is a broad term, the complexity level and variability in manufacturing from, say, an automobile manufacturer to, in our case, life sciences and pharma, is huge. And the requirements on the human in those environments is different. And so we have focused on this space, and it's one that we've gotten good at. And so at a platform level, yes, it absolutely could be used in field service and others. But as a business, we've decided to just get really good at our core customer group to provide the most value that we possibly can.
Good. I like what I saw when I was at EWTS and talking to your group, and I think it's there's so much more you can grow on that as the industries grow. Let's talk a little bit. Let's switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about Pokémon Go.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and some have said next to Google Glass, it really did have the biggest impact on enterprise AR adoption today. But I can tell you from personal experience, and that being my cousin who lives right across from a park, she said she would sit out and look out her window, and these grown adults would stop what they're doing, run into the park to try to get these elusive Pokemon. And that's when I told her what I did. She goes, "Is that what you do, Pokemon stuff?" And so in one aspect, they had a great impact, and on another hand, they had a negative impact on AR. And so how do we in the industry really educate those people that see this AR as that AR?
Yeah, so what a great observation. It's one of which we've been saying now for years, that Pokemon Go was the big catalyst for this industry, because it did something that was more important than anything else, in our opinion, is that it culturally healed the culture to get over the Google Glass situation, that I'll put delicately. I think the failure of Google Glass was not the device. I think the people that worked on the Glass team did a very good job. I think they worked incredibly hard on that device, and they built something that was very good. It's just, culturally speaking, there was a little bit of maybe it was a too soon type of product. And so Pokemon, without a shadow of a doubt, got us over this cultural feeling around what is augmented reality, and is it that Google Glass thing? Well, no, it can be so much more, and it can be something that is rich and not just something that is on your face. But with that said, you're exactly right. It sets certain types of expectations around augmented reality. But the good news, I think, is that it's just opened up people's eyes, and it's opened up their their mind in terms of how and what they can do potentially with this technology. Yes, on the far right, there's this cool, immersive, full-blown 3D crazy stuff where the Pokemon is talking back to you. In our case, it's the bioreactor, spouting off information. But on the other side, there are things you can do on the simple end of augmented reality. And even the simple is not very simple, as you know. But even on that end that isn't as rich as, say, that Pikachu running around the park, there's still a tremendous amount of value. So the fact that we got over the cultural side as an industry, in our opinion, that's what needed to happen. And so now it's just a matter of managing expectations, and walking people back from some of the YouTube videos that are out there. But that said, it doesn't mean that it has limited us from really getting to a point where people are adopting this technology in ways that we didn't even imagine a few years ago.
What's interesting is you have the movies, and you have like Ready Player One, who brought this whole virtual augmented reality world in. And people are like, oh, is that what you do? And it's kind of like, no, it's not really that interesting, right? It's really, we're, laying out information right in front of you that you can see. But I will tell you, did you get a chance to see Charlie Fink's book, Metaverse?
I haven't had an opportunity to read it. It's on my reading list. It's just, as a startup CEO, you don't get much time to read nowadays.
Well, I had my stepson on my lap, and we were looking at it, and I had the app, and there's a section in the book where you can put the book comes alive. It's all animated, and he was like, wow. It was mind blowing. He's like, that's what you do, and I'm like, no, it's not that exciting. It's exciting nonetheless.
Yeah, I think it's the opposite. I think it's all about, we can do the cool, amazing 3D stuff, but when you really can show just what you can do hands-free and interact with your voice, the value and the excitement that we've seen is as high as somebody, thinking, well, maybe not as high as somebody thinking about that this is Ready Player One, but when they actually see the difference between how they do things now and how they can use this technology today, not 30 years from now when, we're all living in a dystopian world. We don't believe in a dystopian world, for the record. Like Ready Player One, we actually are very much more optimistic about humanity, but that's a different story. The transformative nature of what's available today really can just provide so much value that it is amazing. It is eye-opening. It is, otherworldly in some ways, even though it may not do some of the cool things like the futuristic thing 30 years from now on Ready Player One.
Yeah, it's interesting. The fact that we're just in the infancy. I mean, people don't realize that we are like literally in the infancy. We're in Genesis. Right. You said AR is about the evolution of the smart worker. Do you really think AR will be instrumental in the evolution of tomorrow's workforce?
Without question and without hesitation. But it's how you use it is the catch. So using AR just for the purposes of AR because it's a spinny, floaty, cool thing in front of my face is not what we believe the value of this technology to be. We believe AR is the enabling tech to do the things and build the things that we want to build, to even coming back to, I know this sounds corny, but even our name Apprentice, we want to be that digital apprentice for the next wave of the smart worker. And we believe that through augmented reality, we can solve a lot of big problems for these types of individuals that are working in, like I said earlier, some really challenging environments. And so the AR component is not the end all, the be all. It's the enabling technology to achieve the longer term vision. And I think AR will be part of that vision from now until the end. And hopefully there is never an end in our case. But we believe that AR is the first step towards enabling this next wave. And it's through these tools that understand the environment and can provide a layer of contextualization that the next wave of the smart worker will naturally follow from these tools that are being built today.
I had an aha moment when I was reading your bio, and I heard you in another interview when you said that we don't just augment reality, we augment human ability. And I think that's really a great way to think about augmented reality and how it will help a variety of workers in different industries perform better by working more efficiently and, in essence, being more productive. You want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So taking even one step back, even further than the worker itself or worker himself, you're looking at the big trends that are happening in manufacturing and research. Obviously there's all this talk about automation and getting the humans out of the environment. We don't believe that. We believe that the nature of human work is going to change, and a lot of the repetitive nature of work that has been here for the last 50, 100 years, whatever it is, that's just going to morph, and it's going to morph into a world in which humans, like these smart workers that we're enabling right now, humans work with some type of intelligent solution that then the output of the human and machine is substantially better than what the machine alone could have done or the human unaided could have done. And we believe that humans will be in manufacturing. Like I said, we don't believe in a dystopian future. We believe that humans will still be there. They'll be working with automation, but they'll be doing it in a way that provides the highest impact through what humans are good at. And so what we say around, we don't just augment reality, we augment human ability. Our mission as an organization is to empower humans so that they can make smarter, better, faster, and less error-prone decisions, so that as industry is starting to move in its new and more sophisticated direction, that humans are still there. That humans still provide a tremendous amount of value, because we're pro-human, we're team human over here. We don't believe in
we are too.
Yeah, we don't believe in automation wiping out jobs. That's not our thesis. We don't think it's going to happen. We just think the nature of work will change, and folks need a smart tool to be able to do the best work that they can possibly do, and do the highest value work that provides the most fulfillment for the individual. Because this repetitive labor stuff, it's not very fulfilling, and we think that through this technology there are ways in which humans can feel higher levels of fulfillment through this technology.
It's kind of like, I liken it to when I go to the grocery store. I can't use the automated checkout, right? It's meant to, I always have to call somebody. I can't use it, and that's kind of how I liken it. It's like you're still going to need humans. You're just going to have to learn differently. You're going to have to adapt to the technology, or I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah, things change, and we don't think change is bad. We just think if you move with the change is good.
One of the things that's interesting is if you look at, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on the current state of wearable technology. If you look at this, I mean, you have, well, our device is very small, but you have everything from the smallest device with Golden-i Infinity to some of these really, big head-worn helmets. And so I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are on the current state of wearables and augmented reality.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've gone through a few evolutions in our company's history. We now affectionately even have a museum here in the office where we have 20 plus heads on the wall, and we have devices going back to even before when Apprentice got started, just to show the evolution of these things, right? So where I think we are now, after going through a few cycles over the last couple of years, is we're at a point where the hardware can start to deliver on the core use cases that provide a really strong level of value. But I think, like you said, we're just getting started in augmented reality. So of course, there are going to be devices that have better spatial awareness and better computer vision capabilities and better battery life and size. Of course, that's always the future, right? But it's our strong belief that the devices available today, right now in 2018, and the Golden-i device is absolutely one of those, that those devices can provide a substantial amount of value to kickstart this industry. I think we're well past kickstart, by the way, but we can talk about that in another question. But I think we're at the point now where these devices can satisfy some really powerful use cases and set the stage for the evolution of these wearables to come. I think in the early days of our company, and even prior to that, the technology had some ways to go to be able to kind of catch up to the software that we were developing. I think in the early days, the software was further along than the hardware. But I think in the case of now, we're at a perfect point where the technology can deliver on its promises if you set the right promises, and use it now to set the stage for what's to come. I don't think that it's 0 or 1. I don't think we have to wait for the devices of tomorrow. I don't think, even if you look back on some of the Android and iOS devices from the early days of the smartphone, I don't think we need to wait until I now can use my device and it's super light, fits in my pocket and all that stuff. But I really think the devices that are available today can deliver on some promises.
I think they can, and it's funny that you have a museum, because at Copen we've been part of the AR space for 30 years. Somebody actually said that Copen was instrumental in the birth of this industry for the things that we do. And I was wearing an older device on my head. I wanted to see, and it was like 16 ounce. It was like a pound, and now you have something that's really tiny. Your platform works on a variety of different devices. Do you think manufacturers are trying to put the kitchen sink into these? Our belief is that you can go smaller, you can do without. You don't need every single bell and whistle. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we've had that opinion for years now, where you don't need everything. And it comes down to know who's wearing it. I'd hate to make it sound so trivial, but I think what you guys have done a great job on is you've identified who will have this thing on and what they need to achieve their goals. And because of that, you don't need everything and then the kitchen sink in there. You don't need 3D depth sensors. You don't need GPS on it. You don't need, all these crazy things. But you do need a core set of tools. And I think the core set of tools now, finally, after all these years, are starting to become well understood. And that's why I think that the technology, like I said, on the wearable side has gotten to a point where, especially with this new device that you guys are releasing, gotten to the point where it satisfies a very long list of initial use cases and sets the stage for what's to come. So we're very excited about it for obvious reasons. And so I think you're exactly right, where it's just taken a few years to really understand how the technology is going to be used. And I think it's now getting to a point where it's well understood. And then for us as a software manufacturer, it's unbelievably great to now finally have devices that we can then execute on, deliver, and hit the promises that we've made to both ourselves and our customers.
One of the challenges that I identified when I started at Copen, especially in the space, is all these manufacturers are putting out some really cool stuff, but they're not doing any educating. Like buy. They don't know if they're consumer or if they're enterprise grade. And I find it interesting, and I'm interested to hear your opinion on this, is what advice would you give somebody who thinks or was tasked with the fact, let's start looking at this AR smart glass stuff for a successful pilot, because a lot of these people, they buy a solution and it doesn't work, it fails, they stay in pilot purgatory. What would you tell somebody that was actually starting to dabble, put their foot in the water with smart glasses and AR for enterprise?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny you mentioned the term pilot purgatory. We haven't been there in years. We have deployments now where we have 30 plus sites around the world in certain customers. We have huge amounts of usage and deployments across this industry at this stage. And how we broke through that pilot purgatory 2 years ago was it all comes down to the use case. And so for somebody starting off, for somebody thinking about this technology for the first time, for somebody who, sees the value in it, but doesn't necessarily know how to get started and wants it to be successful and doesn't want to see it fail and doesn't want to, go through a situation where they invest an incredible amount in these upfront pilots and get zero return. For us, what it comes down to is getting started in one of two areas. Whether that first area is the well understood and well defined and highly successful kind of see what I see use case. We've built our own solution that really well matches how scientists or engineers go through their process and can use this technology to collaborate globally. But even for see what I see, right? I think where folks go wrong is for see what I see, the first thing that comes to mind is troubleshooting. I have a problem.
Yep.
That, in our opinion, is wrong. don't just use this tool when there's a problem. Try to find ways to embed it in the day-to-day workflow and not just in these episodic, momentary, oh my God, something went wrong type situations. And so for us, we've taken a lot of time and we work with our customers hand in hand to make sure that even See What I See, which again is a very well understood and almost commoditized product at this point, gets embedded in the day-to-day and isn't something that's just used when something goes wrong. Because if it's only used when something goes wrong, hey, guess what? The user doesn't even think to use it when something goes wrong.
Right.
What ends up happening is they go and rely on something that they use day-to-day, whether it's a phone, whether it's a radio, whether it's I'm just going to go and grab somebody, another human, to help troubleshoot this. They don't think to go to the device because it's not embedded in their day-to-day. So for us, for somebody that's getting started with this, and really, please, I hope because this is not just us, I think the whole industry needs to go through this. Even for See What I See, find ways to embed it in your day-to-day workflow around collaboration or things like this, because that's when you can get to the more smoother usage. And if you can get to the smoother usage, you can attack the much more complex use cases around an hour situation, really complex procedures and batch records and processes and all types of crazy stuff that we do there. But you got to get through the basics first to embed this into the day-to-day.
I don't know what that was.
It was my upcoming meeting invite. Sorry about that.
Oh, you have to go?
No. Don't worry. I'll kick it off. This is a very fascinating conversation.
Oh, okay. Well, I appreciate that. So let me ask you a question. So we got VR virtual reality. You got AR augmented reality. You have MR mixed reality, and you have extended reality, ER. In your opinion, who wins the enterprise space? Because there's all these, and again, it's what do I need? Do I need the HoloLens? Do I need music? Do I need real world? No, I got Copin. Who wins?
None of them. So it's our belief that it's not about the blank R. Yep. It's about the use case. I hate to keep coming back to these kind of boring enterprisey things, but for us, it's choose the right device and software and provider, whether it's us or somebody else, for the use case. And so I think there'll be situations where true mixed reality is going to be incredible, and it's going to provide and change and transform how certain people do certain things in certain environments. But I also still think that, things like assisted reality and a lot of these other tool sets will be tremendously valued for other use cases, for other humans that do certain things. And so for us, we keep coming back to the end core use case because that's where we see the most value being provided. Because when you get lulled into the glitz and the glamour of all these new technologies, you lose sight of the human. And so for us, it's always about the human, and we put them first so that we choose what makes the most sense for them. And right now, what makes the most sense are these smaller, lightweight devices like GoldenEye and others, really GoldenEye, where this is something now that can really deliver a tremendous amount of value today for the use cases that our customers and our company have chosen to focus on. Debbie Downer there. Yeah.
No. But if you have a lot of experience with a lot of the tools out there, a lot of the tools. So if you were going to say, you know what, close the door, shut the recording off, let's build our own device. What's the industry as a whole doing wrong, in your opinion? What are we doing right?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. Okay, so there's a couple of things that I think the industry is doing great at right now, finally. So focusing on voice is the number one, above and beyond, numero uno, most important thing that I think people need to focus on. I'll scream at the top of my lungs about this one, where I think now folks such as yourselves are getting it, because when you think about different input ways, whether, obviously there's been in AR, there's gestures and there's clickers and there's swipey things and all this stuff. Voice is the most intuitive because of what's happening outside in the world. I don't make gestures in my car. I don't make gestures to my TV, but I do talk to it, and I talk to Google Home, and I talk to Alexa, and I talk to these other types of devices. And so for us, we think you guys are hitting it out of the park, because voice has been the enabling input mechanism to really light up a bunch of different use cases. So we are incredibly enthused. And when you started the call by saying that you guys have some new capabilities coming out, can't wait to test them because of how strongly we believe in this thesis. So that's what I would say, hands down, is the thing that folks such as yourselves are really getting good at, because that's what the mega trends happening outside of the enterprise are starting to say. You know, it's very, very clear on that. On the area in which I think if we were to build our own device, for us, we have some unique challenges around materials. So this isn't something where I would say device manufacturers are doing anything wrong, because that's not the case. It's in our environments, we have different grades of clean rooms, and these clean rooms require different types of electronics in order to get into these environments. You know, they need to handle nasty chemicals, and there can't be shed material, and all these types of things, right? So in this case, it's not that we think anyone is doing anything wrong. We just think that if we were to build a device, we'd want to build in a lot more of these capabilities. And right now, believe it or not, we've built in custom solutions that we've developed to enable these devices to be used in those types of environments. And so it's one of those things where we couldn't wait for the manufacturers to build it. We built it ourselves. And so those were the kind of the two things that I would say above and beyond are most important at this stage.
I'm glad you said voice, because Copen, that's what we've been focused on with voice. And, you know, the biggest wow factor we've had on the demos that I've done on the show floor is I'll stand right next to somebody and I'll say, especially with the crosstalk, and I'll say open GoldenEye camera, and it doesn't respond. And they go, open GoldenEye camera. And they're like, you know, it's something you don't think about, but they're like, wow. And then getting into the whisper chip, how you can be in a very loud environment, 108, 109 decibels, and GoldenEye reacts, picks up your voice. I think you hit the nail on the head with that, I think. So finally, and I appreciate you taking your time today to talk with me. Finally, I'm very interested to know how you plan on driving Apprentice, the Apprentice platform, to evolve and help us in the future.
Yeah. So we've kind of charted out a roadmap for the next decade in terms of kind of some high ambitions that we have that we want to achieve as an organization. You know, but in the near term, there are a few areas where we're taking what we've already been succeeding at and bringing it to the next level. And we think that the capabilities around what GoldenEye has to offer will help enable some of those capabilities so that we can really start to push the boundaries of what this technology can start to do. And so the first of which is we've built an entire conversational AR and AI platform. So it's not just about the display tech, of course, but it's about the interaction with the human. This is why voice has been so important to us, you know. And so we've built it out now so that voice is a centerpiece. Voice is something, and not just voice, the talking back to you is a centerpiece, because we believe quite strongly that this type of technology and this solution will be the enabling factor to build the crazy things we want to build next. And so for us, it's getting really good at making sure that interaction between the human and device is perfectly crisp. We've hired a bunch of folks now on the team on the UI, UX, and design side of the world that really are truly world-class and come from some of the best design agencies out there. And getting this problem solved is something that we've spent a lot of time on. And then coming up next after that is using these devices now in new ways that I can't share just yet. But we will be at CES. We do have a booth at CES where we'll be showing some of these cool new technologies that we will be announcing coming up in 2019. But just as a hint about all of it, voice is a centerpiece.
Hey, I'm glad to hear that you're going to be at CES. We are too. In fact, we're hosting a panel discussion on 5G and VR. I'm going to send you an invite. If you're interested in coming. Hey, Angelo, I appreciate you taking time today. If you want to learn more about Apprentice, you can go to Apprentice.io. If you want to learn about GoldenEye, you can go to golden-i.com. And I'm Marc Reece, the marketing director of Copen GoldenEye, and I'm going to try to do this one more time. And if I botch your last name, I apologize again profusely. Angelo Stracquatanio.
Oh, got it. Nailed it.
Excellent. I win! Angelo, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.